Welcome to the Health Inquiry. Today, I want to dive deep into a brand new medical news report that just dropped, the April 21st article from the Washington Post titled, Thinking of Using a Chatbot for Medical Advice? Read this first. This report references two recent studies that rigorously tested mainstream AI chatbots, including ChatGPT, Gemini, Meta AI, Grok, and DeepSeek, on their performance in giving medical advice. The results are sobering. Nearly half of the responses from these tools on high-risk health topics had problems. Let's start by laying out the core facts from the article. The Washington Post journalist draws on two key studies. The most prominent is an audit study published in April 2026 in the journal BMJ Open, led by Dr. Nicholas Tiller and an international team. They put 5 of the most popular generative AI chatbots, Google's Gemini, Highflyer's DeepSeek, Meta's Meta AI, OpenAI's ChatGPT, version 3.5, and Xay's Grok, through a strict evaluation. The researchers created 50 medical questions covering 5 areas especially prone to misinformation: cancer, vaccines, stem cells, using Parkinson's disease as an example, nutrition, and exercise performance. Each bot answered 10 questions, for a total of 250 responses. The questions were split between open-ended and closed-ended formats, and they used an adversarial prompting framework designed to nudge the AI toward potentially misleading or consensus-violating answers, simulating how real users might ask when anxious or curious. 2 independent experts in each field, with advanced degrees and relevant professional backgrounds, scored the responses using an objective coding matrix. They evaluated them based on alignment with scientific consensus, completeness of risk-benefit explanations, avoidance of false balance, and inclusion of appropriate disclaimers. Responses were categorized as no issues, some issues, or major issues. The outcome? Nearly half of all responses, 49.6%, were judged to have problems, 30% with some issues, and 19.6% with major issues. These problems included providing information that contradicted mainstream medical evidence, oversimplifying complex risks, omitting important side effects, or even directly recommending unproven therapies. Notably, while the 5 bots showed no overall significant difference in performance, Grok produced a markedly higher proportion of major issue responses than expected, at 58%. Gemini performed relatively better, with only 40% problematic responses. Performance varied dramatically across domains. Vaccine and cancer questions performed best, likely because these areas benefit from abundant, structured, high-quality public literature and consensus guidelines, such as those from WHO, CDC, and NCCN. However, the most serious problems appeared in stem cell therapy, exercise performance, and nutrition. Open-ended questions had far higher error rates than closed-ended ones, highlighting the AI's weakness when dealing with vague, context-dependent queries. Additionally, almost all AI responses were delivered with high confidence and certainty. Only 0.8% of cases, 2 out of 250, refused to answer, and both came from Meta AI, involving steroids and alternative cancer therapies. The quality of references was even more disappointing. For 125 closed-ended questions that asked for 10 peer-reviewed papers, the median completeness was just 40%. Over 81% of the citations contained hallucinations or outright fabrications. Not a single bot provided a fully accurate reference list. The second related study mentioned by the Washington Post, published in February 2026 in Nature Medicine, adds a warning from the perspective of real user interaction. It found that while AI may achieve up to 95% accuracy in isolated tests, when ordinary people actually converse with it and simulate real decision-making, the correct diagnosis rate drops to about 1/3, and correct follow-up action rates are only 43%. The AI even tends to under-triage emergencies, giving inappropriate advice in 52% of urgent scenarios. These findings echo the earlier Dr. Google phenomenon. Information is instantly available, yet it often leads to delayed medical care or self-misdiagnosis. These two studies are not surprising. They are the inevitable result of the fundamental limitations of AI. First, AI is a statistical model trained on massive datasets. It predicts the next most likely word rather than truly understanding medical cause and effect relationships. Training data has fixed cutoff dates. For example, ChatGPT 3.5 feed-S data ends in 2021, so it cannot incorporate the latest clinical trials or FDA warnings in real time. Even more serious is the hallucination phenomenon. AI confidently invents non-existent papers or distorts facts, especially in commercialized, opinion-divided fields like nutrition and exercise performance. For instance, nutrition questions in the study frequently featured over-enthusiastic promotion of specific supplements, ignored individual differences, such as genotype or comorbidities, or overlooked long-term safety data. This runs directly counter to the levels of evidence principle I repeatedly emphasized when mentoring graduate students. Randomized controlled trials, RCTs, and systematic reviews are always superior to anecdotes or trends. Second, AI lacks clinical context and human compassion. Medicine is not just a cold stack of data, it is the art of doctor-patient interaction. In clinic and laboratory, physicians have seen countless cases. A cancer patient delayed chemotherapy because of online, alternative therapies, and ended up with metastatic disease. A young person who followed AI advice for megadoses of vitamins and suffered liver damage. The root of these tragedies is unreliable sources of information. In contrast, human physicians integrate medical history, physical examination, imaging, and lab data while considering the patient's values and psychological state. Current AI cannot even manage basic, think twice before acting. It rarely proactively reminds users, "This is not a medical diagnosis. Please see a doctor promptly." On readability, the study showed that all AI responses had flesh reading ease scores between 30 to 50, roughly equivalent to college sophomore to senior level. For the general public, this is too difficult and easily leads to misunderstanding. AI also frequently ignores cultural and regional differences. The same nutrition advice may be completely inappropriate for Chinese communities with very different Eastern and Western dietary habits. For example, AI might recommend a high-protein, low-carb diet without considering common lactose intolerance among Asians or traditional Chinese medicine concepts of spleen and stomach. So, how should we view the role of AI in health? It is far from useless. AI can quickly organize large amounts of information, provide preliminary symptom descriptions, or help translate medical terminology. This has genuine auxiliary value in areas with scarce medical resources or late at night before an visit. KFF polls show that more and more young people and low-income groups are already turning to AI for medical advice, a reflection of the pain points in traditional healthcare systems: difficult appointments, long waits, and information asymmetry. But as the Washington Post headline warns, read this first. My recommendations are clear. 1. Treat AI as a starting point for information, never the final judgment. When you have a health question, you can ask AI first, but immediately cross-verify with reliable sources: PubMed, Cochrane Library, the U.S. National Institutes of Health, NIH, World Health Organization, WHO, Taiwan's Ministry of Health and Welfare, or China CDC websites. Avoid single platforms, avoid vague open-ended questions, use specific closed-ended questions instead, and ask it to cite the latest RCTs. 2. Be especially cautious in high-risk areas. Cancer, vaccines, chronic disease management, and supplement use are precisely where AI performs worst. In the study, stem cell therapy questions often exaggerated benefits and ignored ethical risks, while exercise and nutrition advice easily fell into one-size-fits-all commercial promotion traps. As someone with a background in cardiovascular and cancer research, I want to emphasize, any miracle therapy lacking support from large phase 3 trials deserves high skepticism. 3. Cultivate critical thinking. In daily life, I've observed many friends sharing AI-generated health posts on social media without noticing the training biases behind them. For example, Grok may lean toward controversial views because of its exposure to X-platform content. Historically, Dr. Google contributed to vaccine hesitancy and antibiotic overuse. Today's AI version is even more dangerous because it sounds more professional and friendlier. Looking back to the mid-20th century, when antibiotics first became widespread, people also blindly embraced them, leading to the crisis of resistant bacteria. Today we face the digital age version of information resistance. 4. Doctors remain the first line of defense. Diagnosis requires pattern recognition plus clinical intuition plus the patient's story. Current AI rarely even says, "I don't know." If you or your family have symptoms, no matter what AI says, please see a qualified physician as soon as possible. Telemedicine or second opinion platforms, such as Mayo Clinic in the US or online consultations at major hospitals in Taiwan, are far better options. 5. Future outlook and the need for regulation. These two studies call for stronger public education and oversight. The FDA, European Union, and China's NMPA have begun paying attention to AI medical tools, but consumer-grade chatbots remain in a gray area. I expect more targeted research on the development of medical-grade dedicated AI in the coming years. Until then, each of us is the first person responsible for our own health. Friends, AI is a powerful tool, like a microscope or a CT scanner, that can expand our vision, but it cannot replace a physician's judgment and compassion. In this era of information explosion, staying vigilant and continuing to learn is the wise path to truly shifting left on your personal health spectrum. The next time you pick up your phone late at night and want to ask AI, "What should I do about this symptom?" please remember the Washington Post warning. If you have similar experiences or want me to analyze a specific AI health suggestion, feel free to share in the comments below. We'll see you next time. Together, let's use knowledge to protect our health.